Welcome to My Home Tool Class, where we're all about tools. Don't forget to join the Facebook group. Just go to groups and you'll find us there in My Home Tool Class. Today we're going to talk about a car kit, tools that you should have in your car. That way you've got them with you all the time. Now, along with this video is a PDF that you can download that just has a checklist of all the tools that we're going to talk about here. Now, what may be glaringly missing is your jack and your lug wrench. And the reason they're not on the list is they should already be in your car. If you don't know where they are, if they're there, if they work correctly, my suggestion would be to go out on a Saturday when the weather's nice, you're on nice level ground, get out your owner's manual for your car and learn where you can put the jack to jack up the front end and the back end, and how to change your tire. Just practice changing your tire. You have to know where your spare is, how you get it out. Every car is just a little bit different, so it's kind of hard to cover all of them. Some of them will have a full-size spare, some of them just have what they call a little donut. It's just an emergency tire to get you where you need to be. So we're going to cover other tools I think you should have in your car and a few little hacks to go along with it. First things first, what I would suggest is that you have an all-in-one screwdriver in your car. That way you don't have to have a whole set of screwdrivers in order to have a screwdriver that you need. Now this particular one, some of them have all the bits in the handle here, the various bits for whatever kind of fasteners. This one is pretty cool. They're actually all in the handle, because each one of these, as you take them out, has a large bit on one side, same kind of bit but smaller on the other side, and of course you've got one in each end. Same here on this one. And then what they came out of is also a nut driver. Again, two different sizes, one on each end. So that gives you basically a whole set of screwdrivers all in one. So it doesn't take up a lot of room in your car. The other nifty thing about this is that it ratchets. If you put it on the center, it acts just like a regular screwdriver in that you have to twist, you have to kind of reposition your hand to screw down again. But you also have a forward and reverse on here, so you can move your ratcheting and you don't have to remove your hand. The nice thing about this is excuse me, is that it lets you keep pressure on whatever it is you're trying to screw or unscrew without having to reposition your hand just to turn the handle. So all-in-one screwdriver. Another thing that I think you should have is they make all kinds of now combination socket sets. I have one of these in each car. This one's actually made by Crescent, and each one of these sockets here will do both SAE, which is standard American equivalents. That's your 7/16, half inch, on and on, or it will do millimeters, metric. So like this one here it'll do half inch or 13 millimeter, and it's because of the way that the socket's designed. Now the nifty thing about this is that you also, it's got a little carrying case for it, so it helps keep it all together. But you also have an adjustable wrench in it. And on one end of the adjustable wrench is where you actually put your sockets. You can put your sockets in there and they ratchet as well. You've got a forward and reverse, so you can put it on whatever it is you're trying to undo or put back in. And then it also has, since it has this center through, or this hole through the center, it acts as a pass-through. So you can get it way down on a bolt or a nut if you have a bunch of threads sticking out. Now on the other end, you have an adjustable wrench. So if you don't happen to have the size in here that fits, you've got that. Now the nifty thing about this is, on this wrench, you can actually run this all the way out, turn it around, put it back in, just got to get it lined up. But you can put it back in, and now you have basically a pipe wrench. So, handy little tool. Now, besides having this in your vehicle, the other thing that I would suggest that you have is another adjustable wrench. The reason being is you're going to put this on the nut you're trying to take loose, and if on the bolt, and if on the other end there's a nut, you need something to hold it in place so you can get them apart. Another adjustable wrench will do that for you. Now this isn't made by Crescent, this is some other company, but if you've ever used a Crescent wrench or adjustable wrench, you know that when you put it down on that nut, that the jaws on these things can be kind of sloppy. There's a lot of play in them. And they can back out, your thumb happens to hit it and it adjusts it a little bit. You go to put some torque on that nut or that bolt and don't realize that it's gotten kind of loose, and you can end up rounding off the corners on that nut. Now you don't have any way of grabbing it. The nice thing about these is that they work a lot like, well, they've got a cam action in here. And so they work a lot like a pair of vice grips. So you run it down on the nut, get it as tight as you can, and then when you squeeze this, it takes all that play out of there and locks it down on the nut, bolt, whatever you have it on. So another good thing to have along with your toolkit. And again, doesn't take up a whole lot of room. The other thing I would suggest that you have is make sure that you have a set of jumper cables. I'll show you here. These are the ones out of my truck. I have probably used these jumper cables more to help other people than I've ever used them for my truck. But it's a good thing to have. A lot of people don't carry them, which is why I've ended up having to help so many other people with a set of jumper cables. Now, when we get into the automotive section in our classes, we'll go through exactly how you hook up a set of jumper cables safely. The other thing I would suggest is that in your vehicle you have a lug wrench, but they're usually a little L-shaped thing and it's kind of awkward, and if your lug nuts are on too tight, they get grime in there, sand and dirt and stuff from the road, and don't want to come loose. When you're out in the middle of the night and you get a flat tire and you need to change it, is not the time to find out that your lug nuts are too tight. What I would suggest that you also carry in your car is one of these. And it has various sizes on each one, so you make sure that it fits your car. But what it does is it gives you a lot more leverage. You can put this on the lug nut, and especially if you don't weigh a lot, you're smaller, and those things are really on there tight, you can put one foot on here, grab it here, and you can get a lot more torque to get that lug nut off. I will caution you that because you can get so much torque out of this, when you go to put the lug nuts back on, you just want to make sure that you do them where they're nice and snug. With this thing, you can quite literally break off the studs. You can get that lug nut on there so tight that you break the studs off. So don't over tighten. You just have to get them up there really good and snug. But again, practice on getting your changing a tire. Just on a nice day, good flat level surface. Engage your emergency brake before you start it. And just practice so you're not doing it for the first time out in the middle of nowhere. The other thing I would suggest that you keep in your car, you can put this under your back carpet or anything like that, is just a piece of cardboard. Because if you have to change that tire, you know Murphy's Law, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen at night, and it's going to be rainy, and it's probably going to be cold, and you'll be in the middle of nowhere, it's going to be dirty and muddy and everything else. So it gives you a way to put something down on the ground. It's disposable. You can always get another one. And speaking of which, I would also keep just a cheap pair of gloves. You can get these for, really inexpensively, and they've just got kind of a rubber coating on the inside. But if you've got a pair of gloves to put on, you've got a way to keep your hands clean. Next, duct tape. I would keep some duct tape in your car. Now, you don't have to have a really, really big roll like this in there and keep it in there all the time. You can actually buy smaller rolls, or if you got a big roll at home, you can take this and just roll some up around a pencil, and you've got a smaller roll of duct tape that you can keep with you. There's probably more things been fixed with duct tape than you could ever count. Another thing is I would keep a multi-tool in your vehicle with you, unless this is something that you carry just every day anyway. But with a multi-tool, it's like a Swiss Army knife. I mean, you've got a pair of needle nose pliers here, you've got wire cutters, you've got a knife, a saw, you've got screwdrivers in here, all of that. And then you've also got, if you happen to go somewhere, I always carry a set of these with me when I go fishing, or keep them in my vehicle. So I've got them when I go fishing, but for removing hooks out of the fish. But just another, it doesn't take up a lot of room. This one is a Leatherman. You don't have to put an expensive one in your car, but that's just the one that I have. The other thing that I would suggest is that you keep a flashlight with you. Now, I would not get just any old flashlight. This one is a rechargeable flashlight. And the thing I like about rechargeable flashlights is if you take a regular flashlight, you've got a battery in it. It's sitting in the car. It's exposed to a whole lot of temperature changes. I live in Southeast Texas, and you can bake cookies on your dashboard. You put dough on a pan on your dashboard when you get to work. When you get off work, you've got hot, fresh cookies to eat. So with a regular flashlight with alkaline batteries in it, if they're not changed out regular, you'll go to use your flashlight, it won't work. You open it up to find out that the battery's corroded and it's ruined your flashlight. A rechargeable doesn't take quite as much effort to keep up with. You still got to make sure that you keep it charged, check on it every now and then. I always have one not only in my car, but I carry a smaller one with me every day. It's just a kind of smaller version than that, and it has a rechargeable battery in it. But again, I don't want to spend good money on a dependable flashlight only to have it ruined by the battery. All right, next thing, first aid kit. This is one that I just made myself. It goes with me everywhere. And it has Band-Aids and Motrin and ibuprofen in it. The other thing that I keep in there is Benadryl. Somebody gets stung by a bee, has some sort of allergic reaction, I've got Benadryl. Imodium, a little gastrointestinal distress on the road, never a fun thing. But if you have to make up one for whatever your particular situation is, whatever your uses are. But this thing has come in more handy more times than I care to imagine, and also usually for other people. But yeah, keep a first aid kit. The other thing I would suggest is, I know you've got a knife here in your multi-tool, but I would suggest that they're not expensive at all, but this is a box knife. I just keep you a box knife in the vehicle as well, so that you've got something to open things up with. A knife comes in handy for all kinds of things, especially if you are a little more adventurous, you go camping and traveling around a bit more than most people. It's good to have something like this, and you don't have to sharpen it. Your blade gets dull, all you have to do is carry extra blades with you, and you have a nice razor sharp knife anytime you need it. So, good thing to have. The other thing I would suggest is, and you can get you some of these that have, well, a bag of zip ties that are kind of an assortment. So that you have different sizes, different lengths, all that. But these have probably taken the place of baling wire for a lot of things. They have more uses than you could count, just holding things together. If you've never used a zip tie, it's actually pretty simple. It's got little serrations here, or indentions along the plastic here, and then up in the head here, it has a little plastic thing that will catch in those notches. So you just take the tag end, put it through there after you've wrapped it around whatever you're trying to hold together, pull it through, and it won't back out. You can cinch it right down to where it's nice and tight on there for you. So zip ties are a good thing to have. They'll come in handy. Now, let's see here. The other thing that I would suggest is that you can get on the market, you can get, they're actually fairly small, but you can get a jump starter for your car as well that doubles as a cell phone charger. It's just got a battery in it. You can charge it up in the house and keep it in your car. And it's got 2 leads on it, just like jumper cables that you can put on your battery. But it also has a port where you can charge your phone. It usually has a flashlight in it as well. The only thing about those, they're really nice if you just happen to have your battery kind of went dead or it needs a little extra juice. The battery pack in them is not large enough to crank your car for an extended period of time. That's why I suggest the jumper cables. But it is a nice little thing because, like I said, it also gives you a way to recharge your battery in an emergency. It's an additional flashlight, that sort of thing. All right, so now we're going to get to some hacks here. The very first one is when you take that Saturday and you go out there and you go to change your tire, before you put your tire back on, just so it makes it easier, I would suggest you do it to all tires actually. I've done enough brakes in my life on my vehicles, because I do all my brake jobs, to tell you this saves you a lot. And that is, it's anti-seize. It's a thread lubricant. You put it on there, it will not make your lug nuts just back themselves off and fall off or anything like that. But what it does do, and it doesn't take a lot, put a little bit on there when you before you put the lug nut back on, and it helps keep out some of the water and the grime, plus it keeps it lubricated. It will make a world of difference when you actually have to change a tire and you go out there to take those lug nuts off. They're not frozen. You can actually get them off. So that's the first hack. Second hack is most of your newer cars run on a single belt. This is just one big long belt I have zip tied together that I keep in my truck. It's just a spare. This belt, it's called a serpentine belt, runs everything. It goes from your engine, where your engine turns, and it snakes around to run your alternator and your water pump, your AC unit, everything. And if you look when you open up the hood, most of the cars have a sticker right there that shows you how this belt runs, how you put it on. So it just snakes around through there. If your belt pops, you've got a way to put another one back on. It's really not terribly difficult to do either. You can do this because you get it snaked around wherever it's supposed to be, and they typically have one idler pulley that acts as a tensioner. So that pulley, all it does is turn, but it goes up against the belt and it's spring loaded. So it puts tension on the belt. So you run the belt around everywhere it needs to be except for the tensioner, and the tensioner will have, that's the only downside to this kind of kit as opposed to a regular socket set, is they usually have a little square opening in there that's 3/8 of an inch that you can put a 3/8 inch drive into. So you've got a way to offload that spring. You just bring that pulley back, put the belt underneath it, and let back down on it, and you're up and going again. So it's just a nice something to have so you're not caught out in the middle of nowhere if your belt happened to go on you. I would also think about, you know, you've got to do regular maintenance on your car. You got to check your oil. So next time you go to the fast food place, they give you napkins for your meal. Put a couple in your glove box or in the armrest, and that way when you stop and get gas and you go to check your oil, if you're like me, they're usually out of paper towels there at the gas station, and you've got a napkin, a way to check your dipstick, because you've got to, when you take that dipstick out, you wipe it off, put it back in so you can check it and see what your oil level is. So that's one little hack. The other is you might want to take and keep just a bottle or two of water in your vehicle. Those are just a good thing to have. You can use it to wash off a cut before you put your Band-Aid on it, or if you've just got spare water with you if you have to walk somewhere. Speaking of which, I would also keep, especially if when you go to work, you're driving to and from work, if you're wearing dress shoes, high heels, something like, that you can't walk very far in, just throw an old pair of tennis shoes in the car. Keep them there. You can stick them under the seat. But you have a way of changing into a good pair of shoes that you can walk for a while in if need be. The other thing is, you also have a way to change your shoes. If you end up with that flat tire out there, like I said, in the dark while it's raining, it's all muddy and nasty outside, you can put the tennis shoes on and save your nice shoes. Let's see here. The other thing I would think about is a blanket, for several reasons. You get broke down, it's the middle of winter, you have a blanket to help keep you warm. If you're like me, we have a blanket in every car, mainly because when I run the AC, my wife is freezing. So she's got a blanket to put on and we're both comfortable. The other thing that you can use it for, we do all the time, you go out shopping, say for Christmas or whatever, you've got something you can throw over all that stuff that you bought, and now it's not visible through the window where somebody wants to break into your car to take it. If you have the room, the other thing that I would suggest is that just keep some of your car fluids with you. A quart bottle of oil, transmission fluid, maybe power steering fluid, even a gallon bottle of pre-mixed, not the concentrated, but pre-mixed antifreeze, and then you have a way, if you need to top it off, to do so. So you can put all that in a box in your trunk. It's a great way to go. And all of this stuff, my suggestion would be, the other tools I talked about, is just get a backpack. You can get one at Goodwill or anything like that and just put all this stuff in it. And the nice thing about that is you can also grab that backpack and go put it in your other car if you decide to take a different vehicle. Then you only have to have one kit when you swap vehicles. The other thing I would suggest that you get is you can get a bottle of Fix-A-Flat. It's an aerosol bottle, looks like a paint can, and it literally says Fix-A-Flat on it. If you don't have a big gash in the sidewall of your tire, you can take this, put it on, you take the cap off of your tire valve stem, and you put this thing on, screw it down on there, and when it gets screwed down all the way, it has enough pressure in the can that it repressurizes your tire, and it has a sealant in it that seals whatever hole was in there. I wouldn't go very far on it, but what it does is it might get you on down the road till you can get that tire taken care of. See what else we had. Want to make sure that you have a working jack and parts. Oh, also have a tire gauge with you, just so you're able to check your tire pressure. A lot of cars now have the pressure sensors inside the tire, and they're hooked to the car, and it lets you know if one's low. Not all of them let you know which tire is low. Or if you're coming out to your car, I make a habit, anytime I'm walking out to my car, I'm looking underneath it. I'm doing two things. I want to make sure there's no puddle of oil or transmission fluid under it, that if I see anything under there, it's nothing but the water from the AC that dripped off. And I'm making sure that all the tires I haven't picked up something and have it gone flat. But a good tire gauge will let you know which tire you need to take care of. That's pretty much it. I think we've covered everything. Now, according to your lifestyle and what you do, you may want to add to this. So just be thinking about the things that you could use on the road that would come in handy. And other than that, I think we're good to go. But make sure that you go out and learn how to change your tire if you don't already know how. It can really be a saving thing. If you have kids that are starting to drive, make sure before they're turned loose that they've got a jack, they've got jumper cables, that they've got a tire iron, and that they know how to change a flat on the car that they're driving. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate y'all. It's good to see you, friends. And don't forget, join us on Facebook at My Home Tool Class group on Facebook. And there's myhometoolclass.com. You can always go there. If you have any questions for me, you can reach me at steven@myhometoolclass.com. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you in our classes. Take care, friend.